Most men miss the signs, not because women hide them well, but because men refuse to see what is right in front of them. In this video, we expose the 6 subtle signals a woman sends when she desires you, signals she will never confess. If you want power in romance as in politics, you must learn to read intentions, not words. In the court of human desire, nothing is spoken directly. Affection moves in the shadows, masked by silence, pride, and calculated restraint. A woman may yearn for you, yet conceal her interest with the discipline of a seasoned diplomat. To the untrained eye, her gestures look innocent, meaningless. But to the man who understands human nature, who studies behavior as a prince studies his enemies, every movement, every hesitation, every glance becomes a confession. Consider, for a moment, how power truly enters a room. It does not announce itself, nor does it rush. It places itself strategically, choosing the terrain long before the battle is declared. Desire behaves the same way. A woman who wants you will rarely confess it openly. Instead, she positions herself in your orbit, subtle as a shadow at dusk. And you, if you wish to govern your own romantic fate, must learn to read the geometry of proximity. Ask yourself, why does she appear near you more often than chance permits? Why does she linger at the edge of your conversations, or drift in the same spaces you occupy as if guided by some invisible force? Most men dismiss these patterns as coincidence, but you are not here to be most men. You are here to rule your understanding of human nature. History teaches that proximity is a weapon. At the courts of Florence, alliances were not forged through declarations, but through plans. A noble woman who wished to influence a decision would not challenge a duke with words. She would simply be present at the right moment, within arm's reach, her silence more persuasive than a speech. Presence bends outcome. A woman today is no different. She may sit close enough that your arm brushes hers, yet far enough that the gesture appears accidental. She may step into your path with an apology too graceful to be accidental. She may choose a seat across the room that still grants her a perfect view of your every movement. These are not random choices. They are careful placements in the psychological battlefield. You might ask, does proximity always mean interest? No, but when paired with a pattern of consistent, deliberate positioning, it becomes a message written in the oldest language of desire, shared space. Do you notice how she enters a room and scans for you, even if her eyes dart away once they find you? Do you see how she arrives at events you barely mentioned? As though drawn by a purpose, she will not speak aloud. Proximity is the first test. A woman who desires you will not risk rejection by approaching head-on. Instead, she approaches sideways, allowing you to make the first explicit move, while she creates the conditions that make your initiative possible. Modern psychology calls this environmental signaling. By controlling where she is in relation to you, she shapes the emotional climate. She makes herself accessible without appearing eager, available without appearing trivial. She is near enough to feel familiar, yet distant enough to retain mystery. This balance is not accidental. It is a dance of controlled visibility. Consider real life. A colleague who somehow takes her lunch break at the same time you do. A friend of a friend who always gravitates toward the seat next to yours. A stranger who stands just close enough to speak to you if you choose. These are calculated openings, not commands, not confessions, but invitations for you to act. And the cruel truth, weak men never see them. They mistake opportunity for coincidence and wonder why others succeed where they fail. But you must learn to see intention where others see randomness. You must treat proximity as reconnaissance. You must ask, is she placing herself where I can reach her? Is she making herself the easiest option to pursue without ever appearing to demand pursuit? Remember, influence begins with position. A general who controls the battlefield controls the outcome. A woman who wants you controls the space around you. She moves like a strategist, not a dreamer. And understand this, proximity is never innocent in the theater of human desire. It is a deliberate construction, a silent architecture shaping outcomes before a single word is spoken. Those who ignore it surrender power without realizing the loss. So the next time you notice her drifting near you, hovering at the edge of your world, ask yourself one final question: is this merely presence? Or is it the first move in a silent campaign? Because if you answer that correctly, the second keynote will reveal an even deeper truth, one hidden not in where she stands, but in what she dares to look at ahead. A glance is never just a glance, not in politics, not in strategy, and certainly not in desire. If proximity is the battlefield, then the eyes are the messengers, swift, silent, and devastatingly honest. A woman may guard her words, conceal her posture, and control her actions. But her eyes, they betray alliances before she has time to deny them. Ask yourself, how often do you catch her watching you only when she thinks you won't notice? How often does her gaze snap away the moment yours rises to meet it? This is not shyness. It is intelligence. It is the same strategy used in royal courts where intent had to be hidden, but influence needed to be felt. In the palaces of Renaissance Italy, a single look could seal a pact or condemn a traitor. Courtiers learned to communicate through fleeting glances, because open speech was dangerous. A woman's interest today is no different. She reveals her desire in the fractions of a second where her guard slips. You see, the eyes operate in two realms. The realm she controls, and the realm she doesn't. When she looks at you deliberately, steady, composed, almost rehearsed, that is her conscious mind acting. But when she looks at you in the small, unguarded moments, when she believes she is invisible to your perception, that is her true desire emerging from the shadows. Why does she do this? Because acknowledging her interest openly costs her power. Because a direct gaze exposes vulnerability. Because desire, when unspoken, grants her an advantage. You, however, cannot afford to be blind to these signals. A man unaware of watching eyes is like a prince unaware of spies moving in his court. Blind, outmaneuvered, controlled. Consider the psychology. The more someone tries to suppress attraction, the more it leaks through nonverbal behavior. A woman may deny her fascination with you in conversation, in tone, even in posture, but the eyes rebel. They flick toward you instinctively, checking your expression, gauging your mood, measuring your distance. This is not romance, it is reconnaissance. Pay attention to the timing. Does she look at you when you're speaking? Or does she look at you when you're silent, when you're distracted, when you are turned slightly away? The second pattern is the truth. She observes you when she believes you are defenseless, unprepared, unable to catch her stare. This is the directed glance of intent, the look that reveals the hidden architecture of her thoughts. Imagine a woman sitting across a room. She laughs with her friends, her attention seemingly elsewhere. Yet every few minutes her eyes drift toward you. She does not smile at you. She does not wave. She simply watches, quietly, consistently. You are her point of reference, even when she pretends otherwise. Or picture a scenario in which she listens to someone speak, but the moment you speak, she glances at you not to admire, but to monitor. She wants to see how you carry yourself, how others respond to you, whether you hold social gravity. Her eyes track your value. This is the pattern of someone calculating, someone drawn toward you but unwilling to reveal it outright. And here is the darker truth. Women are masters at concealing their thoughts, but the eyes reveal what the lips refuse to confess. History proves this. Envoys at foreign courts were trained not only to interpret treaties but to measure the glances exchanged across banquet halls. A queen who allowed her gaze to linger on a visiting diplomat risked igniting rumors, alliances, even wars. And yet, those glances still happened. They always do. Why? Because desire is not obedient. It bends the body toward what the mind tries to resist. You must learn to recognize the pattern. A single look means nothing. Repeated looks at moments she believes you are unaware. That is a declaration. Do you understand what that grants you? It gives you leverage. It gives you foresight. It gives you the upper hand in the unfolding psychological game. But do not confront her. Do not expose that you've noticed. Knowledge loses its power when revealed prematurely. You must hold it, study it. Let her believe she is still hidden while you prepare your next move, because the eyes may reveal desire. But the next keynote unveils something even more dangerous, what she shows you on purpose. Tonight we peel back the elegant veil of feminine strategy, not to romanticize it, but to dominate it. For in the game of desire, as in governance, knowledge is the only weapon that cannot be taken from you. Controlled vulnerability is never an accident. When a woman reveals a fragment of weakness, she does so with the precision of a strategist unveiling just enough truth to provoke your instinct to protect. You must understand this. Her vulnerability is not a surrender. It is a calculated opening. Ask yourself why she chooses certain moments to let her guard slip. Why does she tell you a small insecurity, a minor fear, a frustration that seems strangely well-timed? Why does her voice soften only when the two of you are alone, never in a crowded room? These are not random confessions. They are crafted signals designed to shift the balance of emotional power. In the courts of old, rulers did not expose their deepest wounds. They revealed small, manageable weaknesses to inspire loyalty, sympathy, and allegiance. A prince might speak of a treacherous ally or a difficult decision, not because he wanted pity, but because it made his subjects feel included in his inner circle. A woman who desires you employs the same tactic. Consider how she frames her stories. She may mention a friend who betrayed her, a past relationship that disappointed her, or a challenge she is facing. Yet notice how these revelations never paint her as helpless. Instead, they position her as resilient, but slightly wounded, strong enough to be admired, soft enough to be protected. This balances her power. You might think vulnerability equals honesty, but psychology teaches otherwise. Humans reveal small vulnerabilities strategically to build trust. It is one of the oldest social weapons. When she shares a subtle imperfection, she invites you into a privileged space. She makes you feel chosen, and once you feel chosen, you become invested. Have you ever wondered why you feel closer to her after she tells you a minor personal detail? Why you feel the urge to defend her, support her, or understand her? This is the psychological effect of controlled vulnerability. It binds you to her without overt force. Imagine a woman who speaks confidently around others, yet in a private moment admits she sometimes feels overlooked. This is no casual confession. It is a demonstration crafted for your eyes only. Or picture her telling you she is unsure about her appearance today, though you know she chose her outfit with precision. Her self-doubt invites your reassurance, and once you give it, she gains influence. In another scenario, she may reveal a past wound, not the deepest one, but one polished by retelling. It is safe for her to share, yet impactful enough to draw an emotional reaction from you. She controls the narrative. She decides the timing. She manages the intensity. Vulnerability in her hands becomes a lever. Notice how she observes your reaction. Does your voice soften? Do you lean in? Do your eyes change? She watches closely, because your response tells her how much sway she holds. It reveals whether you are emotionally susceptible, whether you value her trust, whether you are willing to invest energy in her well-being. A woman who desires you will reveal just enough vulnerability to test your interest. She does not beg for support, she invites it. She does not expose her soul, she opens a window, not the door. And through that window, she measures your intentions. Ask yourself, why does she share these details with you and not with others? Why does her vulnerability appear only in your presence? Why does she allow you to glimpse the cracks in her armor while presenting a polished front to the world? This is no accident. This is strategy. Controlled vulnerability is the art of drawing someone closer while appearing to do nothing at all. It is influence disguised as intimacy. But understand the danger. If you mistake curated softness for wholehearted trust, you will surrender ground before you know you're in a negotiation. The wise man listens, observes, and recognizes that every emotional revelation carries a motive. Because if she is showing you a weakness, she is hiding a strength. And the next keynote reveals what happens when those hidden strengths begin to shape your emotions in ways you never intended. Prepare yourself, for her tactics now grow far sharper. Emotional cracks are never loud. They whisper. They slip through the surface of composure like hairline fractures in marble, barely visible, yet impossible to ignore. And when a woman desires you, these cracks appear not by accident, but by instinct. Her emotions betray her long before her words ever will. Ask yourself, why does her mood shift when your attention drifts elsewhere? Why does her smile falter when you speak warmly to another woman? She will hide it, of course. She will mask it with a polite expression, a calm tone, a practiced indifference. But beneath that calm is a subtle tremor, a flicker of jealousy, a tightening of posture, a sudden quiet. These are the signs of emotional investment leaking through the armor she tries so hard to maintain. In the courts of power, rulers learn to hide their emotions to protect their position. Yet even the most disciplined prince would reveal tension when a rival encroached on territory he valued. The face hardens, the voice cools, the eyes sharpen. A woman's reaction to your divided attention follows the same ancient blueprint. Her composure cracks not because she is weak, but because she is invested. Consider the psychology. Humans are territorial even in subtle ways. When someone we desire interacts warmly with others, our nervous system reacts before our logic does. Heart rate increases, muscles tighten, micro-expressions surface. She is not jealous. Outright jealousy would be too revealing. Instead, she becomes slightly distant, unusually quiet, or suddenly eager to reclaim your focus. These are the emotional leaks that expose her attachment. Imagine this scenario. You're speaking to another woman, not flirtatiously, just naturally. Out of the corner of your eye, you notice her body stiffen. Her smile becomes controlled. She adjusts her hair in a way that signals self-awareness. Later she asks casually, "Was she a friend of yours?" The question is innocent in wording but weighted in tone. She wants to measure the threat. Or picture her reaction when you give someone else a compliment. She laughs, but her eyes dim for a heartbeat. She changes the topic quickly. She redirects the energy back to you. These are the maneuvers of someone who feels a claim unspoken, denied, yet undeniably present. A woman who feels nothing remains unchanged. But a woman who desires you is moved by where your attention lands. Attention is currency. Where you spend it reveals your priorities, and she watches this carefully because it determines her position in your psychological hierarchy. Think of medieval alliances. A ruler might pretend to be indifferent to a neighboring prince, but if that prince began negotiating with another kingdom, anxiety emerged. Movement, tension, strategy. Similarly, she shifts emotionally when she senses competition. She fears losing ground she has not openly claimed, yet deeply wants. Her emotional leak is not dramatic. It is subtle, controlled, but real. A slight coldness in her voice, a shorter reply, a forced laugh, a comment that sounds neutral but carries an edge. She retreats not to punish you but to protect herself, and in that retreat her feelings reveal themselves. But here is the crucial insight. She will never admit any of this. To confess emotional investment is to surrender power. Instead, she hides it beneath layers of poise, hoping you will not notice the tremor beneath the surface. Most men miss it entirely. They see her retreat as disinterest. They see her quietness as boredom. They see her tension as coincidence. You must be sharper. Recognize that emotion is the first realm where desire exposes itself. Words lie. Actions can be performed, but emotions slip out uninvited. They are honest even when the person is not. So watch for the small fractures, the fleeting expression, the sudden shift in energy, the moment she breaks eye contact too quickly, the way she becomes overly cheerful to hide an internal sting. These are confessions without language, and understand this: if emotional investment leaks through her composure, then the next keynote reveals something even more telling: how she mirrors you to secure her place in your world. Such reflective mimicry reveals her deeper longing, a deliberate emotional alignment designed to draw you nearer without risking an overt confession from her. Mirroring is the oldest form of psychological alignment. Long before treaties were signed or alliances forged, rulers observed one another's tone, posture, rhythm, and speech to create the illusion of mutual understanding. A woman who desires you does the same. She reflects your energy in small, calculated ways, not to imitate you, but to signal compatibility without exposing herself to rejection. Ask yourself, have you noticed how her humor begins to resemble yours? How her pace of speaking subtly adjusts to match your own? How she uses words you used earlier, almost as if adopting your language to build an unspoken bridge? This is not coincidence. It is strategy. It is the quiet art of mirroring, a technique that binds two minds without either acknowledging the process. Psychologists call this behavioral synchronization, but history knew it long before science named it. In diplomatic courts, envoys mirrored the gestures of foreign leaders to gain trust. A slight lean forward if the other leaned forward, a softened tone if the other softened his. This created rapport, lowered defenses, and made cooperation feel natural. A woman who mirrors you is employing the same ancient weapon. Consider the small details. You mention a preference, and suddenly she echoes it days later. You share a belief, and she nods with a conviction that feels newly formed. You laugh in a certain rhythm, and she joins with uncanny similarity. Humans mirror those they feel drawn to, but women in particular refine the technique, shaping it into a subtle declaration of emotional alignment. Imagine this scenario. You speak passionately about a subject. Minutes later, she mirrors your enthusiasm, adopting your phrasing, your cadence. She is not copying you, she is calibrating herself to you, matching your internal frequency so you feel understood without effort. This is how influence takes root, when someone makes you feel as though your thoughts echo naturally inside them. Or picture this. Sit with relaxed posture, and she gradually does the same. You cross your arms, and moments later, so does she. These reflections happen beneath conscious awareness. They are instinctive signals of connection. When she mirrors you, she is not merely agreeing with you, she is aligning herself with you, shaping your perception of her as someone who fits. Ask yourself why this matters. Because mirroring lowers resistance. It makes communication smoother. It creates comfort and familiarity. When someone reflects your mannerisms, you interpret it as similarity, and similarity breeds trust. A woman who desires you wants that trust. She wants emotional access without having to request it. But do not be naive. She mirrors selectively. She mirrors when you are watching. She mirrors when the moment is intimate, when the two of you are alone or slightly separated from others. She does not mirror in large groups that would expose her intentions. She mirrors in private moments to cultivate a sense of shared identity. Notice how she adjusts her emotional tone to yours. If you are calm, she softens. If you are playful, she becomes playful. If you are thoughtful, she grows pensive. This adaptive emotional shaping reveals investment. She wants to maintain harmony with you, to avoid friction, to keep the connection smooth and effortless. This is not weakness, it is calculation. A woman who does not care remains unchanged by your presence, but a woman who mirrors you is influenced by your energy and seeks to influence you in return. It is a form of subtle persuasion, a way to embed herself into your psychological space without asking permission. Reflect on this. Why would she mold herself to your rhythm unless she wanted to be accepted? Why would she align her behavior with yours unless she wished to reduce the distance between you? This is how desire moves quietly, strategically, through patterns of reflection that feel natural but are anything but aimless. Recognize the significance of this tactic. Mirroring is not romance. It is negotiation. It is an attempt to show compatibility while retaining the option to retreat. If you show no interest, she risks little, yet stands to gain much. And if you fail to notice her efforts, she will not confess them. She will simply withdraw, taking her alignment with her. Because the next keynote reveals the final, most strategic move she makes. Not mirroring you, but disappearing from you. Withdrawal is never random. When a woman desires you yet fears losing power, she performs a calculated retreat, not to abandon you, but to measure you, to see whether you will cross the distance she creates, to discover whether your interest has depth or only convenience. Ask yourself, why does she suddenly grow quiet after showing clear signs of warmth? Why does she respond slower, appear busier, or let conversations hang in the air unfinished? This is not disinterest. This is strategy. She pulls back to observe your movement. The retreat is a trap disguised as absence. In the courts of old, rulers mastered this art. A prince who wished to test a rival's loyalty would withdraw from negotiations, allowing silence to provoke desperation. If the rival pursued, trust could be exploited. If he did nothing, the prince knew the alliance was weak. A woman's withdrawal follows the same political logic. She steps back to see whether you step forward. Consider the deeper psychology. Humans instinctively value what is moving away from them. Scarcity ignites pursuit. Distance creates desire. The moment she withdraws, your mind begins to question, did I misread her? Did something change? Should I reach out? These thoughts are not accidents. Her silence plants them deliberately. Sudden distance is often preceded by emotional closeness. That is what makes it so effective. If she had shown no softness, her withdrawal would mean nothing. But after drawing you near through proximity, glances, vulnerability, and mirroring, the absence becomes sharp, noticeable, intrusive. You feel the void she created. Imagine this scenario. She has been responsive, warm, subtly engaged. Then one day, she becomes quieter. Her replies shorten. Her energy cools. You sense a shift. Not hostility, just distance. She is not pushing you away. She is pulling you into the test. She wants to see how much of the connection rests on your effort. Or, picture another situation. You mention meeting new people, and she suddenly grows strangely unavailable, not upset, not emotional, simply withdrawn. She wants to know whether your attention remains easily redirected or whether she holds influence. This withdrawal is her instrument of measurement. You must learn to distinguish this from genuine disinterest. Look at the patterns. Does she still observe you from a distance? Does she still maintain the quiet threads of connection, liking something, appearing near, responding eventually? These signals reveal that the withdrawal is tactical, not terminal. A woman who doesn't care disappears cleanly. A woman who desires you withdraws strategically, and during this retreat, she watches everything: your timing, your consistency, your tone, your initiative. She studies whether you panic, whether you chase blindly, whether you grow cold, or whether you approach with controlled confidence. She wants to see if your desire is stable or fragile, understand her motives. By withdrawing, she protects her dignity. She reduces the risk of appearing too invested. She equalizes the power dynamic she feels slipping, yet at the same time she invites pursuit not openly, but through the quiet language of absence. Why? Because pursuit reveals value, because effort reveals intention, because action reveals truth. In strategic warfare, withdrawal can lure an opponent into overextending. In desire, her retreat can entice you to show your real level of investment. But here is the subtle danger. If you chase too eagerly, you lose power. If you ignore her completely, you lose opportunity. Master lies in measured pursuit, acknowledging the distance without surrendering your composure. Consider a real example. She stops initiating conversations. Days pass. Her presence dims. Yet when you send a calm, steady message, she responds with quiet warmth. Not enthusiasm warmth. This means her withdrawal was a signal, not an exit. She wanted to confirm that you were willing to bridge the gap, but without revealing how much she hoped you would. Or another example. She avoids eye contact after an intense moment of connection, not because she regrets it, but because she is overwhelmed by her own emotions and fears they have become too visible. Her withdrawal becomes a shield, but also a beacon, drawing your curiosity. Do you see the game? Her retreat is not absence, it is architecture. It is the construction of tension, curiosity, and emotional gravity. A woman who withdraws strategically desires you more than she is willing to admit. The distance she creates is the precise measure of the closeness she wants. But the true test is yet to come, because after withdrawal comes the moment where she waits, silent and still, to see whether you will restore the balance, or whether the entire silent campaign collapses into nothing. In the end, remember this. Control is never taken by force alone. It is taken by understanding the weaknesses people proudly deny having. Influence grows in the shadows, in the silent assumptions you let others make, in the choices they believe they chose freely. You guide them, not with chains, but with carefully crafted illusions of autonomy. Ask yourself, is there anything more powerful than directing a person's path while they insist they walk it by their own will? The greatest rulers of history knew this truth, not through cruelty, but through clarity. The clarity that people follow what mirrors their desires, fears, and vanity. So reflect on what you've learned. Observe the world with colder eyes. Notice who pulls the strings and who merely dances. And if you want to see deeper into these hidden mechanics, if you want more strategies, more psychological dissections, more lessons forged in the fire of real power, then speak. Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe for the next Machiavellian chapter. Share this video with those who think they cannot be influenced.